for that. And we want to begin by taking a look at some feedback that has been coming to us from Kenyans. Several questions, especially about connectivity and the cost of it, so that we can deeply get into looking into that. Albert Nexus is saying that if a power surge or outage from Kenya Power damages my electronics, how will I be compensated, and what is the process for filing and resolving a claim?
Naam, jumbe nyingine ambayo pia imeingia, hili swali linaenda kwake Daktari Engineer Siror. There is this big man in your office based at Kirugoya Town, Kirinyaga, who ignores all protestations from consumers at Kiamwenja Center on why their power was arbitrarily transferred from a previous line to another. That's objectively. Nadhani, mwingine.
Esther, you're saying that why does it take 7 to 14 days to replace a faulty transformer? And probably, Engineer MD, we may begin with you because there's a specific question to you, so that we can also get into the deeper analysis of what exactly people pay for. And I'm sure that Engineer Wino would want to take that. But first, for you, MD.
Okay, I know one of the... And we hear you. We've had a number of comments, especially made about the fact that one applies for power connection and he has to pay for the transformer, while when the others come, they do not contribute to the same. The issue is, and I really want to, following on the tip from my boss, the CS, he did indicate that Kenya Power operates as a commercial entity. But there are those other programs which the government does by virtue of the recognition of the importance of power. And they normally come under the last mile scheme. So it's either a social program, in which case the government funds it under the last mile scheme, or it's a commercial venture. Now, when you look at the tariff that we do charge for the power that is consumed, there is no provision really for the cost that one would incur in putting, putting that transformer. It would have had to come directly from Kenya Power Resources. But look at this sum. That for every 100 shillings, for example, that you pay in the bill, 65% goes to generation. What only comes to Kenya Power, possibly for the 100 shillings, is only 20 shillings. And when you look at the composition of that 20 shillings, it might be 10% of that, which is really the profit that Kenya Power makes. It could even be lower. So that would say then that for every 100 shillings that you are dealing with, your profit is only 2 shillings. And if you were to make a capital investment in millions, it would really take quite long for you to recover it, and you might never even recover it. And that is actually why the tariff was made quite simple. And the idea is to maximize the number of connections, so that this commercial person who wants this power for a commercial purpose should be able to cater for that installation. But yes, it is true that once it is installed, the rest who come on board, and they'll always say this, I wish you were on my seat, Sam. The person will just say, I'm 100 meters away from this transformer. Why should I pay more than this particular amount? And they are right. So what normally, traditionally follows is now the one who comes after would actually just be paying for the installation, for just the cost of making that connection, and they don't have to pay for that transformer. But definitely, this is a very good conversation. The conversation is open, and we can see looking forward if there are other ways within which that can be dealt with. Okay. So, yeah.
Engineer Wino, hili swala la miundo msingi, kuna swali ambalo limetoka kwa Consumer Studio. Kuna yule mmoja alikuwa anauliza hii bei ya baadhi ya miundo msingi kama vile vikingi vya stima. Kwa nini sehemu moja mtu ambiwe kwamba pole moja ni laki moja na kwingine ambiwe ni 15,000 kulingana na vile nilivyosikia? Je, kuna bei sawa ya hii miundo msingi, na ni nini ambacho kinafanya kwingine gharama iko juu kupata hii connection na kwingine iko chini?
Asante sana Mashirima kwa hilo swali. Ningependa kufanua kwamba katika kuunganisha umeme, serikali imefanya juhudi ya kuhakikisha kwamba Wakenya wanaweza kupata nguvu za umeme kwa njia ya last mile. Last mile connection huwa inagharamia kujenga miundo misingi yote ya umeme. Na ukiangalia pale ambapo tulipokuwa mwaka wa 2012 na pale ambapo tuko sasa hivi, hatua ambao tumepiga imekuwa ni kwa sababu serikali ilichukua jukumu ya kuweza kugharamia miundo misingi kusambaza umeme, hasa katika maeneo ambayo bado hayakuwa na umeme, maeneo za mashambani kule katika kaunti zote Kenya mzima. Kupitia kuunganisha umeme kwa mradi wa last mile ambayo inafanywa katika phases, serikali imeweka mikakati kwamba unapounganisha kwa umeme, hiyo miundo msingi inagharamiwa na serikali, alafu yule ambaye hatimaye anaenda kupata manufaa ya kuunganishwa anagharamia ile hatua ya mwisho, ndiposa inaitwa last mile. Hatua ya mwisho kuunganisha kwa nyumba yake, na hapo ndipo utagharamia kulipa shilingi 15,000. Na hiyo pesa pia kupitia kuwezesha Wakenya kwamba isiwe ni kizingiti ya kutopata stima, serikali imeweka kwamba sasa unaweza lipa polepole unapotumia hiyo stima, au ukinunua token, sehemu 50% inaenda kwa kulipa hiyo gharama ya kuunganisha, alafu ile nyingine inalipa gharama ya kukupatia token ya kuweza kutumia stima. Njia nyingine ni kwamba kwa kuwa last mile haiwezi kufikia Wakenya wote kwa mara moja, inafanywa katika mikakati pale ambapo bado last mile haijafika. Na aswa hii ni kwamba ukiangalia katika our towns, our cities, access ya stima imefika karibu kila mahali. Na ili kuwezesha Wakenya kupata stima bila kungojea last mile, unaweza kufanya application, tukupatie quotation. Na kupitia hiyo application, ile quotation ambayo utapata itategemea unahitaji miundo misingi kiasi gani ili uweze kuunganishwa stima. Katika hiyo gharama tunayokupatia, iko na gharama ya vile vifaa, nyaya ya umeme, kuna milingoti ya kuweza kuinua hizo nyaya, kuna gharama ile ya utendakazi, kuna gharama ya kusafirisha vifaa hivyo. So ukiangalia hiyo quote ambao tunapatia wateja wale ambao wanataka kugharamia stima, tunawapatia quotation ambayo imeunganisha hivi vitu vyote, na katika hiyo quotation tunawapatia bila kuweka markup yoyote. Hakuna.
So what is that range?
The range, for instance, if you require one pole, you can pay an average of 76,000. It can be a plus and a minus, but an average. Two poles will be about maybe 110 plus or minus, depending on how far you are and the cost it will take to ensure that we're able to transport the various equipment and the installation requirements to be able to connect you.
And you're saying there's no markup, meaning that you just pay for the cost of installation?
Exactly.
All right, I want us to take a look at a bill or two bills by customers, and this is a client who is in an urban areas, to be specific in Nairobi, spent 4,000 shillings in the month of March 2024, and they got 140 units that they filled in their prepaid tokens or token meters. The token amount out of the 4,000, the money that went to buying the token itself was 2,326, just over 50%. The rate per token was 16 shillings 60 cents per token. Now, alongside that, there were taxes and other levies. The VAT, value-added tax, was 465 shillings. The fuel energy charge was 581 that they paid for. EPRA charge was 11 shillings. Water Resources Authority charge was 1 shilling 86 cents. The Rural Electrification Program charge was 116. So, lives in Nairobi, pays a bill of 4,000. 116 shillings went to the Rural Electrification Program. Inflation adjustment was 46 shillings. That's a client in Nairobi, March 2024. A client upcountry, May 2024, spent 100 shillings to buy tokens. They got 4.93 units of power. The token amount was 60 shillings, meaning the rate per token or per unit was 12 shillings, 17 units. And then the VAT for that client was 12 shillings, 42 cents. The fuel energy charge was 17 shillings, 34 cents. And EPRA charge was 39 cents. Water Resources Authority charge was 9 cents. The actually less than 9 cents, 0.09 shillings. The rural electrification program charge was 3 shillings. Inflation adjustment was 1 shilling 62 cents. Now, engineers, there has been questions about how this billing happens. And of course, we know that the pricing is determined by EPRA, but of course, after a recommendation from yourselves, maybe you can help Kenyans understand how it gets to paying for that, because you're talking about even fuel charge, there's EPRA charge, and there is also the rural electrification program charge. I don't know who wants to take that question to really understand how exactly that works, so that Kenyans also understand, is there a difference if you use a token or the prepaid meters versus the postpaid meters? Engineer Rosemary.
Yes, thank you very much, Sam, for that, and Kenyans. And this is a question that is very important to us as Kenyans to understand the tariff regime. And I'm grateful that you've broken it to the token amount and the rate per token. Now, the tariff structure that was approved last year and that is in force has, for example, domestic customers in 3 bands. The lifeline or the lower band is people who consume less than 30 units. So if you consume less than 30, and on average, less than 30 units per month, then your rate is domestic customer 1. The current cost of per unit in DC1 is 16.58 shillings per unit. That is before you add the VATs and the fuel energy and all that.
Right.
If you consume between 30 and 100 units per month, then your rate is 20.58 per unit. Sorry, 16.58 per unit. So someone who consumes between 30 and 100 units then pays 16.58 shillings.
I think you mixed the figures right there. 0 to 30 is
12.24,
right,
to be precise. Then 30 to 100 units is 16.58 shillings per unit. The upper band, which is above 100 units, the rate is 20.58 shillings per unit. That is the current tariff.
So once you cross the 100 units, so everything you spend will be charged on that rate of 20? Or is it the first 30, the second 70, then beyond 100?
Thank you very much. The tariff is based on your average consumption. So we work out your average consumption over the last 3 months, and that determines which band you belong in. Okay. So if you belong in DC3, the 100 and above units, even your first unit is charged at the DC3 rate. So it doesn't even add value for you to buy 30 units initially and then another 70, and then because your charge is based on your average monthly consumption, which then determines the band in which you operate. There's an additional charge that comes to the people connected under last mile who are still paying for their connection charge, which is charged at half the amount. If you paid, for example, 100 shillings, half the amount would go to paying for your connection, okay, which you have been given upfront, and half the remaining amount then will be used to give you your tokens.
Okay, all right. Engineer, let's first take a story here that was prepared by Jasmine Womboy, that small businesses appear to be bearing the brunt of the high cost of power worsened by frequent blackouts, despite efforts from the Kenya Power residents, or rather Kenya Power residents and business operators do not seem pleased by the services they receive from the Kenya Power. Jasmine Womboy spoke to prepaid individual consumers and business owners around Nairobi and now brings us this report.
Kenyans have time and again lamented over not just the cost of power, but also the unreliability of power. And it appears the more things change, the more they remain the same. Job Mwangi has been elected the chairperson of the Council of Residents at Imara Daima. He says blackouts are one of the most recurrent issues he has had to address.
The blackouts a lot of times synchronized with the rains. Almost every time it rains, there's a blackout. we can't quite tell the connection between the two, but almost always when it rains, there's a blackout. For
businesses in Imaradaima, the all too frequent power outages have left them counting losses. Joyce, a baker and caterer, tells us that were it not for the size of her small shop and the upfront cost of a generator, she would get one for her business.
Like now, the latest that happened really affected us. We lost everything that we had done for that day. Some of these things we have refrigerated them. Some of them are frozen, and when food is frozen or rather refrigerated, it goes bad, all of it.
In Mukuru Kwanjenga, business is at a standstill. He says insecurity has become rife as a result. Asked for how long they have been in the dark, SMEs in the area are counting losses. Susan Wambua, a saluni, says that for the last 2 days, she has had to turn clients away thanks to a blackout.
Stima imekuwa iko na shida mingi juu sometimes inaenda saa zile unaendelea na kufanya kazi. Seme kama majioni hivi unapata uko na customer but stima imeenda.
And today Susan will have to turn away yet another client.
Jana nilikuja kufanya broad run nikapata kuna stima. Nikarudi leo nimekuja asubuhi saa 2 hadi saa hii nimekaa kungoja stima.
In another informal settlement in the outskirts of the city, residents say they have not had power for days on end. Ali Mohammed runs a gaming and cinema shop. When we visited today, his shop was closed.
Sisi ukaa kwa waji wa ghetto. Tunalia kwa sababu wenyewe huwezi fanya biashara kama hii bila nare. Unaona? Watu wanafaa kuangalia sahi champe. Watu wanafaa kuangalia Premier League. Watu wengine wamechill wanataka kuangalia movie yao, unaona? Lakini ikifika sasa unafunga biashara yako, kuna mtu wa salon hapa nyuma yetu pia amefunga, unaona? So ikikuwa sasa biashara zote zinafungwa kwa sababu yenyewe ni nare hakuna. So tunataka tu gava pia watu angalie.
And where power is available, the cost of it has meant thinner margins for businesses. Collins Achien uses about 30,000 shillings every month at his welding shop. This bill, he says, has become a burden.
Token imekuwa bei juu. So unapata most of time ukinunua hata token ya inakuja unit 2. Juu hii ni kama commercial. Na client wenye tunafanyia inakuwa shida kumwambia bei juu anaona bei yako iko juu.
Business owners are now calling on the government to come up with a solution.
I think we pay very expensively to have power. And so it's also their duty to see that we are supplied with this.
Kenyans appear rather dissatisfied with the services they're receiving from KPLC, from what they're calling impersonal responses to their complaints to delays in restoring power in cases of a blackout. Citizens and businesses alike all seem to have a bone to pick with KPLC. The long and short of this is the people want more. Jasmine Wamboi, Citizen TV.
Namshukran sana Jasmine Wamboi hapo akiwa anatueleza jinsi hali ilivyo katika baadhi ya biashara hapa jijini Nairobi. Na Engineer Mwaura, unaweza kujibu swali hili. Ni nini ambalo husababisha stima kupotea mara kwa mara na haswa panaponyesha, na huchukua muda gani ama inastahili kuchukua muda gani hadi pale Kenya Power inaweza kumuunganisha tena yule mteja?
Asante, thank you for that question. As we said earlier, or rather has been said earlier, there is need for maintenance of the network. And Kenya Power handles quite a big, expansive network. We talked about 300,000 kilometers. And why does power have blackouts? Because there's a fault on the line. And at times, these faults switches off the line for purpose of ensuring safety. So if there's a short circuit somewhere, then power cannot be on until that problem is removed. So it's part of the protection of the system for lines to go out. But then, what do we need to do? We need to remove those causes of faults on the line. Now, one of the major causes of those faults is that a line is okay as long as the insulation, insulation is okay. So If there is nothing, like there's no rain and all that, then insulation is better. As we know, water is a good conductor of electricity. So at times when it rains, the environment changes, especially where there are trees. So if you have a tree branch on the line and it is wet, it will definitely break the insulation. And then the line, you sense that there is a fault between the line and the ground, then it switches off. So until we come and remove that aspect, that fault on the line. I would say we as Kenya Power, we are dedicated in ensuring that we minimize these interruptions. We are in business and we want our power to be reliable.
So it's automatic that whenever there's a challenge, the power switches itself off?
Yeah, as a protection means.
So the argument by people that someone sitting somewhere to switch on and off, not true?
No, not true. No, it's not true.
Okay, engineers, we want to hear from a question by one of our consumers or one of the panelists in the consumer studio, and that is Wycliffe, who has a question for the panelist here.
Yes, sasa swali langu ni kwa my good friend CS Chirchir na engineer MD wa Kenya Power. Wanafanya nini kuinvolve organized groups kama resident association kufight vandalism? Because vandalism ndio imeleta mambo ya unreliability. Power ikikuwa disconnected ama transformer ikiibwa, wire ya stima iibwe, ina take long ku replace. Wanafanya nini? Nimesikia kwa clip saizi kama mmoja wa one of the resident association leadership job akiongea juu ya kukuwa involved. So Kenya Power wanafanya nini ku-involve organized groups ku fight vandalism? Ya pili, quickly, Kenya Power wanafanya nini mambo ya billing? Kuna a lot of inaccurate billing. Unapewa tu estimates. Leo hii nimeconsume power ya 2000 lakini naambiwa because last month niliconsume power ya 20,000, so bill yangu itakuwa tu hapa side hiyo ya 20,000 kila month. Kenya Power anafanya nini kwa hiyo? Asante.
Okay, all right. So there are two specific questions. I guess Engineer Rosemary can take those two.
Okay, I think that is a very, very, very good question in terms of what we are doing to engage the public or even the residents association in tackling vandalism. And possibly to add even what Charles had said before about the causes of some of the blackouts. Some of them, of course, are also caused by vandalism. And indeed, it does cause a lot of losses. And you would imagine this transformer, which is actually serving an hospital, and a vandal just comes and, you know, by that action alone, not only do we lose the transformer as Kenya Power, but if that hospital does not have generators, what it does mean is that some lives are going to be lost. If it's an institution, of course, it is very disruptive. Indeed, I think it is very good that you have asked, because yesterday I did, and these are the engagements that we really do have, to ensure that we all fight and we marshal as much help as possible. And it is even for that reason that we are here today, so that we can collaborate to deal with it. I think this year I did have, and I did meet the the CARA, the Resident Association, and we engaged on these issues of vandalism and the need for us to work together. Yesterday, I had a meeting with the COFEC and the scrap metal dealers, and the message was the same. And indeed, maybe the highlight of this message was that during this time when dealing with scrap metal was banned in Kenya, for the 5 months, that is in 2022, there was zero vandalism. So we really did establish that there is a very strong nexus between vandalism and dealing with scrap metal.
Okay.
The other one thereafter is when it was lifted, of course, there was a spike. So we are engaging the Residents Association, we are engaging the scrap metal dealers, and we are also engaging the public using this platform to tell them that vandalism is not only a loss to Kenya Power. It does result in a lot of losses. It would be, and I think even there was a lot of enumeration, Sam, even this evening, about the various impacts of some of these outages. So we are engaging in as far as that is concerned.
Okay. Engineer Rosemary, do you have a specific answer? Because he cites billing inaccuracies and the struggle that different consumers have to go through to even estimate how much they should be paying.
Yes, thank you very much, Sam, and thank you for that question. Bill estimation is usually a last resort that we resort to when we are unable to get a reading from the client. And some of the reasons that make us not get readings is denial of access to the premise, sometimes intentionally, many times not intentionally. A lot of our people lock up their premises and go to work, and we are unable to access the meters. Some of them for long periods, and therefore when we finally are able to get that access, there's an accumulated consumption. The reason why the billing estimate would be erratic would be if we are not able to frequently get access to an actual reading in the premise. What have we done about it? One, we have introduced self-reading. You are able to carry out your self-reading of your meter. You register as a self-reader. When your reading is due, we give you an SMS prompt.
Okay.
You take a reading of your meter and send it to us, and we are able to do the billing based on that self-reading. Secondly, we continually encourage our customers to give access to our meter readers so that they are able to access the meter and get the reading. Thirdly, and long-term, we are now introducing smart meters. Smart meters communicate with us and we communicate with them, and they are able to give us the reading digitally, and therefore that will help us better be able to bill our customers with actual readings and without frequent estimation.
No.
All right.
Naam, asante sana Engineer Rosemary. Tunapumzika kidogo tu, tutarejea hivi punde na mengi zaidi pamoja na zile taarifa ambazo tunazipa kipaumbele katika taarifa zetu za saa 3.
And remember that we're here in the Kenya Power studio. We also have the government studio. We have the experts